Can you hear me now?
Yes, Rabbi.
Great. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we are together Thursday night. It is Maseches Avos Perek Rishon, and we're starting Hillel and Shammai. So Hillel and Shammai kiblu mehem. Hillel and Shammai received from Shmai v'Avtalion. Hillel omer havei mitalmidav shel Aharon. We should be from amongst the students of Aaron. Ohev shalom v'rodev shalom. Ohev esabrios u'mikravam l'Torah. So this evening we're going to focus on the first half of the Mishnah. So Hillel says you should be from amongst the Talmidim of Aharon, loving peace, chasing peace. That's what we're going to focus on this evening. But then it does continue and it says loving people, Ohev esabrios, or mikarvam l'Torah, and bring them close to Torah. So let's get a few opening questions on this Mishnah just to get clarity, and then hopefully we're going to give a mahalech. So the first question is, we're learning something here. It should say, lomed mi Aharon. What does it mean when it says, have mi Aharon? And if it's already saying learn from Aaron, then learn from Aaron directly. It should say, have Aharon. Why does it say have mitalmidav shel Aaron? Why the students of Aaron? That's question number 2. Question number 3, why do we need Aaron here at all? In general, when one of the Tanaim is teaching a principle in the Mishnah, then he just says it himself. Hu haya omer, Shammai omer, Rabban Gamliel omer. Don't start giving examples of other people who are like that. I understand that it could add, but that's not the way of Pirkei Avos usually. It's not that we have to find people who connect to it. So why doesn't it just say, Hillel omer, Ohev shalom, v'rodev shalom? And the fourth and final question for this evening is, what's the double language? What is the difference between Ohev shalom and Rodev shalom? We've been very medaic until now. Whenever it has a noun and a verb, why it specifically uses that verb with that noun. Now it's using the word, by shalom, it has 2 different verbs. It has Ohev shalom and Rodev shalom. What is each of them? What is the difference between them? So just to summarize the 4 questions. Number 1, what is the word have? Number 2, why the Talmidim? Number 3, bichlal, why do you need Aaron? You could just leave that out totally. And number 4, what is the double language of Ohev Shalom and Rodev Shalom? What is the difference between those 2 principles? So what many, almost all of the Mefarshim that the Rishonim that I saw here, they start by teaching the famous story, so we'll read it. Sorry, Rashi, I mean Rashi. I'm quoting Rashi. When Rashi quotes it, he says, "K'shaya roeh shnai merivim ze im ze, haya holech lekol echad ve'echad shelo medat chavero, ואומר, פלוני ראה, למה אתה מריב עם פלוני? Why are you fighting with him? So he uses a different language here. And the language that the Bartanura used was a language of, he feels great regret. Rashi doesn't use that language. Rashi says, why are you fighting with him? And remember that point, we're going to come back to that. What gain do you have? What gain are you gaining by fighting with him? It doesn't say here that the other person sinned. It doesn't say here the other person feels regret. It just says the other person came to me and said to me, please, let's make up. Until you will agree to. So it's a different language side. The Rabbeinu Yonah, the last one who quotes this, he has an interesting language, which I want to be Madaikin as well. He says, Sheyehav belibo ha'emet v'hashalom. When Rabbeinu Yonah writes it, he precedes the word shalom with the word emet. He doesn't just say you should love peace. He says you should love truth and peace. That's going to be an important point, because the way we read of Avadia Bartanura, there it didn't seem to have an element of truth. There it seemed to be you should just lie and make up things, say the other person feels regret, and it's all justified. Rashi was the middle view. Rashi didn't go so far as to lie, or not an outright lie. He didn't say you should say he feels regret when he doesn't, but he did say, why are you fighting with him? He asked me to come and make peace with you. That was partial. When it comes to Rabbeinu Yonah, there, before the word shalom, he says the word peace. Ha'emet v'hashalom. First comes the truth, and then comes the peace. And then he brings the principle. So let's go through the idea and get more depth in it. And we're going to use a few different maforshim here, bring them together. And our goal really is to have a deeper understanding of what peace is. And maybe two different levels of peace, and a clear understanding of those two levels of peace and when to activate each one. So we're going to go through the questions one by one and see different maforshim and how to understand it. So first of all, we ask the question number one, why does it start with the word haveh? And this is a huge principle. There are many areas in Avodas Hashem where people learn how to speak about them, and they know how to give a good drasha on them, but they don't necessarily fulfill them. And there are different areas in there. And in those areas, sometimes it's still worthwhile learning about it, because the fact that you learn about it, you're osek in it, then it makes part of who you are, at least in your mind. And then when it comes to the action, you have to take action. Learning the concept behind peace. It has to be something that you're immediately recognizing how that's going to play in action. You have to immediately be thinking, wait, where in my life is there an area which peace would help me? And how would I immediately act differently? When you hear Musar, I'm just going to pause now because I can see my battery's going to run out and I don't want that to happen in the middle of this year. So give me a moment's pause. Your patience. We made peace just then. So let's just resume that topic. When you learn Musar, there are 2 points of entry for Musar. There's a point of entry in the mind, and there's a point of entry in the heart. And when you learn the Musar and you say, how will I understand this? Not only that it will be in the mind, v'yadata hayom, but that it will be in the heart, v'hashivota elavavecha. The way that you connect those two is that when the moment happens, when you hear an idea, you have to pause. You have to say, if I just stop now and I'm satisfied with that idea and I say, whoa, great vort, good shot, then what's happening is I'm putting on a tie. I'm making a tie. What does it mean to make a tie? It means that you're making a break between the mind and the heart. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but Hasidei Chabad don't wear ties for that reason, in order not to have a division between the mind and the heart. If you take in an idea and you hear it and you say, good pshat, nice pshat, at that moment you're making a division. And chas v'shalom, you're leaving it in your mind, but it's not entering into the heart. And therefore you have to, when you hear Torah, and you hear it something which is al derech avodas Hashem, and this is true most especially in the area of shalom, because in shalom there's a big divide between the mind and the heart. You have to pause and say, I can't move on until I've thought of a way that this is relevant to me in my life and how I would apply that, and you envision it in your mind. So if, let's say, you have friction with a parent or with a sibling, and you hear the ideas that we're speaking about now about shalom, which we're going to elaborate more on in a minute, and then you say, oh, that was a nice pshat. I hope my sister will hear that. I hope my mother hears that pshat. That's a nice pshat. That we should publicize this. No. That will be that you're saying it's keeping in my mind, and I'm going to tell other people about it. It will have the opposite effect of what it's supposed to have. But rather, what do? You say, one second. I've heard an idea. It's a Torah idea. If it's a Torah idea, it's emes, and it could profoundly change my life. How? When you've had imagery, when you've envisioned something, you can act on that, but you can't act on a concept. You'll say, I know I should be having peace now, but I don't know what to do. That's where you'll be stuck with, because the tie is too tight around your neck. But if you've made it down to your heart by using imagery and envisioning it, then you can have the stage. So that's the message of the first word, that when it comes to the word shalom, have. Have means you have to already be envisioning yourself. How is it going to play out? How are you going to act it? That's question number one. Question number two, why does it say the Talmidim of Aaron? Why doesn't it say Aaron himself? Aaron, and this is going to connect also to the next question. Let's put the two questions together. Why does it say the Talmidim of Aaron, not Aaron himself? And also, Bichlal, why does it mention Aaron? You could just go straight for Hillel. When it comes to peace, then the Yetzer Hara works over time, that you justify yourself why, even though in principle you agree with the idea of shalom, but it doesn't apply in this interaction that you have with someone else. It applies in general. It applies to them, actually. They should make peace. But it doesn't apply to this particular scenario because the situation here, it's not relevant. And there's many Yetzer Hara excuses as to why it's not relevant. And if you'll come and say, but 1 second, look, this person made peace, and that person made peace, the Yetzer Hara will go all out, all his weapons to say, it's logical for him to make peace, but you, in this situation, you shouldn't make peace. So let's give an idea of one or two of those answers. Answer number one, Aaron Cohen was a big tzaddik. He was born where his brother was born, there was light in the house. When he was born, they saw Yetziat Mitzrayim. Aaron Cohen was in a different league. It's impossible. Okay, fine. So you can't be like Aaron, but you can learn from him. Let's just pause here on this minute. I want to elaborate on this point. One of the Yetzer Hara's tricks, whenever you hear a story of a gadol, of someone great, you say, whoa, amazing story, but not relevant to me. Instead of putting the tie over here, you put the tie over here. And you say, yeah, the gadol was way above where I am. But do you know where I'm holding? It's so not relevant. It's totally irrelevant to me. That's true in many areas in Avodat Hashem, but especially in peace. You hear someone else who makes peace and you say, I don't know where he landed. I don't know where he comes from. But that's not relevant to me. He was a gadol ador. He was in a different league. Gedolim can make peace. But I'm not a gadol. So what do you want from me? So therefore it says, we're not expecting you to be on the level of Aaron HaKohen to make peace. Havemi talmidav. You should rather be a student of his. Now, how do you become a student of someone? This is the definition of a talmid. You don't try. That's answering question number 2. Why doesn't it say, why does it say Talmidim of Aaron? Now, why doesn't it just say Hillel? Why do you need to be halal, bring in Aaron at all? Just say Hillel says, Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. That would be enough for us. And here again comes the Yetzer Hara with different tricks. Why doesn't it apply to you? First trick the Yetzer Hara uses, and this is from the Yavitz, Chassid Yavitz, I found in the library. It says, Aaron was a Kohen Gadol. Aaron was from a family where his brother was the Melech. Aaron a Kohen, that's someone you can learn from, that no matter how chashuv you are, and no matter how distinct you are, and no matter which family you come from, it is never beneath you to go and make peace. The Yetzer Hara's trick, as he says, you're a Ben Melech, you're chashuv, you learned in yeshiva, you went to this high school, your brother was this person, your father was that person, your great-grandfather was Avram Avinu, you're someone very chashuv. Other people who are lowly, they're the bad ones, they need to make peace. They need to come and, like, appease me. But me, I am from this family, from this background, from this learning. Do you see this? Do you see this poster on the wall? You know how hard I worked to get that? Do you see this high school diploma? Do you know how much time I wasted in school and they ever even gave it to me? Like, you have to, I'm very chashuv. It's beneath me to go out to him. I have to chase after him to make peace. So we're mentioning specifically Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen was the Kohen Gadol. He was the brother of the Melech. He was the most chashuv person. And we learned from him, he was willing to go down and go to make peace. That's the answer to the Yavitz. The answer of Rav Ferber, my great-grandfather, in his Sefer, I think is a beautiful pshat. And this is, again, the same principle. The Yetzer Hara, this is the Yetzer Hara's trick trying to say why it doesn't apply to you. Hillel was famously known to be humble. He was a big anav, and he could handle however much people annoyed him. The Gemara in Shabbos on Lamed Gimel speaks at length about someone who made a wager, a bet, that he could get Hillel annoyed, and he went to the bathhouse where Hillel was not wearing clothing, and he said, "Who's Hillel? Who's Hillel?" And Hillel was the Nasi. He was the Godel Ador, the Nasi of the generation. Where's Hillel? Where's Hillel? So Hillel gets dressed and he comes out. "Yes, my son, how can I help you?" He said, "I was wondering, why do the people who come from the Parasim, why do they have eyes slightly like this to the side?" He says, "Oh, very good question that you for favors. So someone like that, of course, he's going to make peace because anyway, he's just, that's his nature. But someone like me, that's just not my nature. It's not my temperament, Rabbi. I'm not the kind of person who can ohev shalom or dev shalom. Very nice Hillel. For him, it was good. Aaron HaKohen, anyone who's been learning Bava Basra recently, and this parak that we just got to, knows that there was a get makusha. Why was there a get makusha? Because the Kohanim were known to be makpid, kaptanim heim. The Kohanim, they had a quick temper. And when they would get upset with their wives, then they would immediately want to go and divorce them. So the Gemara, the Chazal made a takana that they have to have a very complicated get with the Eidim signed on the inside and all the folds. By the time they would get the whole thing untied and they would sign the whole thing and unsign and tie inside, by then they would make peace with their wives because it was it's a temporary anger. It's crazy. It passes, everything's okay. Kohanim, kaptanim heim. It's in their blood. It's their nature. That's who they are. So don't come and tell me Hillel says, because then the Yetzer Hara will come and say, Hillel, beseder. That's his nature. That's who he is. I'm not like that. Okay, we'll bring you an example of the leader, the forefather of the kaptanim. Those who get angry, those who have a quick temper. And then you have no excuses anymore. So that answers question number 3. Why is it specifically mentioning the idea of Aaron HaKohen and didn't just say straight from Hillel? Now the last point, and this is the peak, the final point, is what is the double language represented? The Ohev Shalom and the Rodev Shalom. And we're going to give it on 2 different levels and then say the main principle. Level number 1, which we've already mentioned, but I want to express it now even more clearly. This is how we answer question number 1. And this is from Rabbeinu Yonah. I'll read it to you inside Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah says, there's one level of shalom in the heart, but that's not considered that you've brought the midah into the world. The midah only comes into the world when you've expressed it in action. That's Rabbeinu Yonah. He says, Yesh b'nei adam ohavim oto belevav shalem, v'lo yitrchu atzmam lasum shalom ba'olam, ve'enam holchim b'darchei ha'shalom, ach osim ha'pa'ula u'mesim shalom ben adam l'chavero v'ohavim la'asot melacha. There are some people who they agree in principle with the idea of shalom. They would say it's a very important idea. Why is everyone arguing? Why can't they make peace? In their heart, shalom is a value. They speak about it all the time. Everyone, please, don't fight. Everyone, chevra, calm down, make peace. But they just talk about it from the outside. And they have the principle of peace from almost a righteous place. I believe in peace. It is a value for me. Shalom machshav. I believe in it. And they're spewing out these lofty words of peace, but it's not coming in action. What are you doing to make peace? If someone will come to me and say, this group and that group, they're always fighting, we have to have peace. You say to them, well, what have you personally done to make peace? They go, they should be making peace. And you say, so you're shouting. That's how you're making peace? By shouting that they should be making peace? It's not going to work that way. There was I think it was Rav David, the person who's in charge of Torah Masorah in America. A rabbi in America, a big askan. So he was bothered by this concept. So you know what he did? An amazing idea. He is a man who's Ohev Shalom and Rodev Shalom. He made a project where he would take rabbis of different groups to give shiurim in the other communities. A beautiful idea. He had Dati Lumi or modern Orthodox rabbis coming to the Haredi community and giving shiurim. He had the Hasidic rabbis coming and giving in the Litvish. And he had all the people who don't necessarily make shalom with one another. Here at Devar Torah, a regular shiurim that would take place, the rabbis switched. And suddenly you say, oh, in that group, they have Talmidei Chachomim? Who would have thought? I never knew the people there. I always thought they were these apostle people who were just making up things and just like quoting verbatim things they don't even understand. And look there, someone made the chiddush, they have understanding. Who would have thought? That's Rodev Shalom. That's that you're not just talking about where everybody else should be making shalom, but you're taking action and making a project where shalom should be taking place in the world. So that's the first level. In other words, the 2 stages are Ohev Shalom, it has to emanate from your heart. And it has to be expressed in Rodev Shalom, that you're chasing after it to make sure it has standing in the world. It has grounding. But the second level, and the main idea I want to conclude with, is the Abarbanel. The Abarbanel, and these are my words, but from a principle that he says, and I'm elaborating on it a lot, says the following idea. There's two levels of peace. There's a non-Jewish level of peace, which is also a basic Jewish level of peace. That's not our goal. That's not what we're discussing here or aiming for. And then there's a Jewish concept of what peace is. If you go out to the streets and you ask people, what does it mean to have peace? The simple answer they will give is there's no conflict. There's no fighting. When you ask someone, what does it mean to have shalom bayis? It means we don't fight. But when you think of it deeply, it's obvious that that's not what the midah of shalom is. Shalom is from the language of shleimus. It's not talking about not having a negative. It's talking about building something positive. So when we talk about the Arab and Israeli conflict, there, the only level that's being discussed is that there won't be fighting, there won't be war. And there, to some degree, it makes sense. But if you would say, do you have shalom bayis in your marriage? Sure, we haven't fought for the last 3 years. We haven't spoken either. But it's a good segula. A segula for shalom bayis. If you don't speak, you don't fight. Gavalt. I didn't hear that advice from any of my rabbonim. But it's poshut, muvan me'alav. It's obvious. You don't speak, you don't fight. Shalom. So that's shalom from a goy perspective. Right? We're not fighting. Obviously, there's peace there. But that's a sur meira level of peace. It's not having friction. But when we say that Hashem's name is Shalom, it obviously does not mean that Hashem's involved in just like separating all the bully with the victim and making sure there's no fighting going on. If Hashem's name is Shalom, then it's talking about a higher value, a higher level that we're aiming towards, a midah of shleimus. Imagine you have a mind and a heart, right? So when we say that they work well together, they have a shleimus, that doesn't mean that they're not fighting. It doesn't mean that the heart and the mind aren't fighting. It means it's a system that's working in harmony, where all the different facets of the system work so well together. They each recognize their role and their part. They're able to work in a harmony to function together towards a higher goal. The word shleimus represents all the different faculties working together towards an achdus for a higher purpose. The name of Hashem is Shalom because He is the ultimate achdus, where all the elements of the world work together to recognize and praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it all functions within Him. So says the Abarbanel, there are two levels. There is the level of Ohev Shalom, and there is the level of Rodev Shalom. Whenever we say the word Ohev, then it means that that is the highest value. That's what we love. Not that it's a b'diavad. It's not a b'diavad. Rather, it's I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I love Talmidei Chachamim because they bring me close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anything you love means what you recognize as the highest value. You also love your wife because she represents the shleimus, which you're able to bring the Shekhinah down with. Love always comes in order to create a shleimus so that the unity, the oneness can rest. And that's where you'll be able to recognize Hashem. And of course, we're in the Nasi here. So the Nasi is that represents the midah of Ava. We spoke at the Nasi is Ava and the Av Beistin is the Yira. So we're in the Shammai is going to be the Av Beistin because he's going to represent Din, Yira. But now we're in Hillel. So there's two levels. Ohev Shalom is recognition of the higher level of what Shalom is. It's where you recognize there is a place for everything in the world. There is a role for everything in the world. There is no need for friction and everything. We're not talking about friction. It's that there's a harmony of everything working together. Ohev Shalom. And that's why you can understand why Aaron was able to go to each side and he was able to make peace with each side. Wasn't it lying, we asked at the beginning? Wasn't Aaron lying? But he was learning from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Medrash says that when Hashem wanted to make the world, then the different midas were fighting about who should you make or shouldn't you make. And the middle of emes said, don't make the world. And Hashem took emes and he threw it down to the ground. And shalom remained. So Aaron HaKohen learned from that shalom and emes, when they conflict, the ultimate mitzvah that we're working towards is shalom. Because Hashem's goal of making the world is to come to a shleimus. And that's why there's a concept of you're allowed to lie for the sake of peace. Why are you allowed to give up on one midah for the sake of the other midah? Because the ultimate purpose of us being in this world is hashras shechina, is a recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. And when there's friction in the world, we can't recognize Hashem. But even when there's not friction in the world, if the different parts are not working well together, there's not a love between them, there's not an ava, you also won't be able to recognize Hashem. If you and your wife aren't fighting, but you haven't spoken for 3 years, there won't be Shechina in the house. So the first ultimate level is Ohev Shalom. Develop within yourself a love for everything of Shleimus. Seeing how the harmony, how everything works together, recognize that Shleimus. That's what Aaron HaKohen did. He recognized that these two people can work together, not just because they're fighting. He didn't just stop their fighting, but he recognized he loves you and he loves you. Fiaseini, make love. And what was the language of the Midrash? Until they kissed each other. Not just they stopped fighting and they resolved, but they kissed each other, says Tana Pirkei Avos. Avos Dorinasa. They came to a love. Second level, which is also important, is Rodev Shalom. When are you Rodev Shalom? When there's fighting. When you see there's friction, there you have to go and chase after to make sure there's no friction. But that's a secondary thing. The primary value is Ohev Shalom. So with part 1 in the Mishnah, there's more to say about the mitzvah of Shalom. Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach will continue with this on Sunday. Yosef, can you stay online for a minute? Thank you. Okay, have a good night. Have a great Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.